So we're back for another episode, Doctor's Diary. Today we're going to be talking about locuming and how it's been going so far. I mean, technically I'm on my quote unquote locum year, but not really doing that much locuming, if I'm being honest. I'm essentially just, I don't want to go this way. Let's do a Yui. Having a research year and doing some private assisting. That's my idea of locuming. But you don't always have to do it this way. There's always other ways you can do your locum year. This is a chaotic way to start this episode. My things just flopping around, that little air freshener, car freshener. I had a little cut yesterday, which is now re-bleeding because I just opened it up a bit and needs a band-aid. No good. Regardless, how's it going locuming and having this year off clinical rotations and everything? It's largely pretty fun. I mean, imagine if you're starting work as a doctor and you have to wake up every morning and going round on patients and, be on call or go to clinic or do all these clinical requirements that take up majority of your time, and you might leave home at say 6:30 and not actually come home until 7:30, and your day is pretty much taken up. And then if you want to do other stuff outside that, it can be very frustrating and you don't actually get a lot of time to do all that sort of stuff. So having the freedom to sort of organize your day is, I think, probably the biggest pro with this. And I don't know, it almost feels like you're in your pseudo gap year, so to speak. I never really took a gap year. I just went from school to university and then did my undergraduate degree, did my postgraduate degree, and then cracked on and started working as a doctor. So it's now been 3 years, and this is my 4th year working, or really not working, but sort of doing work adjacent stuff, which is good fun. So I actually haven't done a locum shift yet. I've been just supplementing my income with research, which I was lucky enough to get some paid research. So essentially it's like a paid research role, which is very good and sometimes hard to come by, but getting a little bit of income from that, and then also private assisting, which is good. So you can make it work. It's not always going to work like this for everyone involved, and you will have to maybe do research if you wanted to do that, and then do locum shifts alongside it all. You may have to organize some own private assisting. Maybe it's picking up shifts as a casual contractor at the hospital you were previously at. So I have casual contracts at my old hospitals because just in case that there are shifts that come up, I can take them without going through a locum agency, and it's actually pretty easy to do it, to be honest. And you essentially just, it always depends on the hospital and health service you work with, but from everyone that I've spoken to, can actually be quite good. You let them know that you want to stick around and potentially help out the workforce, and because they are always looking for doctors above intern level to fill shifts and to help out, it's a no-brainer for them to keep you on. And if a shift pops up, you're able to take it on, which is really cool. So yeah, it's a good way just to have options out there if you need. And if for whatever reason I can't do A, B, or C, then I can always do that and get some shifts that way. So you'll never be without work or without options for work as a junior doctor. I guess the alternative that you don't think is, unless you have a bunch of people who you do this sort of stuff with, it can it can actually be a bit of a more interesting routine to sort of do it yourself, and you might have to find other ways in which to sort of motivate yourself to get things done. And maybe it's, finding another person who wants to do this year with you. And I know people who often do that. They do it in sort of groups, and it often just depends on what stage in your career you're at, and it may not work for everyone. And potentially you may want to just step away from medicine for a bit and think about what other things you want to do in your life, or whatever that is. So whole different ways you can organize this quote unquote year off. And I think it's a necessary part of everything, right? Like, you want at the end of the day to have as much experience as you can and broaden your horizons and live your life alongside your work, and not just work for your whole career and then live your life after. If there's an ideal situation, I think it's doing stuff simultaneously, so you're not sort of putting anything on hold, but more so, working hard and then playing hard, and actually having a bit of fun. So that's what I would do, and that's what I'm trying to do for my life, is to actually put in the hard yards, work hard, and then you actually get to enjoy the reward of all that by going on holidays or catching up with friends, or spending more time with family. And if that's an option that's out there for you, I think that's a great thing to go for. Practically organizing the year off, your locum year or whatever, it all just depends on what you want to do and get out of it. So for me, I'm pretty much staying locally unless I really need to travel or want a bit of time away from everything, and that's just because I want to stay close to my contacts, do research, be available if I need to do assisting and stuff. So that's why my preference is to stay around the same area. But say if you wanted to travel, I mean, it's as simple as signing up to a locum agency, and they advertise shifts on their website. They may text you about them, they may call you, and then all you have to do is really just say yes or whatever. You put in your stuff in the system, like your CV, your job preferences, the level that you've worked at, all the documents that you would put on to a hospital as sort of onboarding documents. You need to put that onto a locum agency website or profile, and that's how they get you jobs. So they're essentially your recruiters. They liaise with the hospitals. They're the middleman, and then the hospitals can come to an agreement. You sign your contracts at your whatever rates and go from there. And they're pretty lucrative stuff. I mean, I got a text the other day for 7 night shifts in a row at $190 per hour as a surgical registrar. And I mean, you could do that, but I mean, I've got other stuff to do. So there's pros and cons, right? So, but all I'm trying to say is, like, things that pop up, I haven't even put in any information into this site. I've just said that I've potentially want to do some locuming, and it could be a good way for me to just earn a bit of cash and have some buffer if there are delays with anything else. So it's definitely something I'm actively considering, but if I have options to do other stuff, that's my preference. But I guess there are a bunch of different locum agencies that you can go for. There's no best one altogether. So yeah, I'll list a few in the description for you to check out. And yeah, you can check them out. Like, they all operate over Australia and New Zealand as well, some of them. All you need to do is just really indicate you have interest in them, and the way locum agencies get paid is they get paid when you get paid. So it sort of works all together, and it's in their incentive to for them to find you a job, very much like it is in the incentive of a recruiter to find a job for the person wanting a job. So yeah, and there's a range of different shifts available, from resident to registrar, consultant. I guess fellows get offered work as well, but yeah, you can do that. And as I said, I haven't actually done a locum shift yet, but interacted with a couple of different locum agencies, and you may actually see them at your hospital as a JMO. They might sponsor a lunch, or buy some pizzas or something like that, and hand out some cards and just let them know that they're available, and if anyone wants it, then they're sort of like a household name when it comes to that sort of stuff. And yeah, I guess there's pros and cons with locuming. I mean, the pro is that you get to travel around, experience a different health service, and you get to explore a new destination if you wanted to travel somewhere else in Australia, or I guess you can go anywhere in the world really, but if we're just talking about Australia, you can go to a different state and explore what that's like to work there. You can get some new contacts and everything like that. My counter argument to that is, if you wanted to build your network, you really want to have long-lasting relationships, and whilst locum people are good and they can help out, and they're just temporary solutions to things, and if you really want a new organization to use you, well, you can use them as a reference, then you really need to stay there for quite a long time and for them to get to know you. So that's my thing with it all. But you can get your foot in the door, I suppose, and impress a few people, and it might put you in a good view for maybe a job in the future or something. So yeah, I guess if that's an option that you wanted to explore, you could definitely do it, to try to go to a different health service and experience it, and maybe just trial it for a bit. So it's not actually a bad way of thinking about things, if I'm completely honest. The other good thing about locuming is that you actually get paid quite a bit of money for the same amount of shifts that, well, it's not the same amount of shifts, but the hourly rate is almost, if you think that your hourly rate as, say, a registrar is around $50 an hour, then locum rates could be triple that, or even quadruple, as I was saying. So $190 an hour is almost $200. It's almost 4 times that amount that we previously spoke about. So you only have to work a fraction of the time to earn the same amount of your income that you would for the year. And that's the benefit of it. Yes, it's not as guaranteed, although there are longer term contracts. My argument for that would be, well, if you wanted to just work for 3 months in a row, why not do it at an organization that you want to, you may as well just like confirm and lock down a proper role for like 6 months or 12 months, rather than just do like a 3 or 2 month stint at a place. The counter argument to that is that you can do a whole bunch of work for a concentrated amount of time, and then if you wanted to go travel for like 2 months or 3 months, then you do actually have the funds to be able to do that. I don't know. There's so much variability and, just uniqueness about it all, that it's a really fun year, I think, for someone just to work out whatever it is they want to do that they've been, thinking about in the back of their head, but just haven't had the time and flexibility to be able to achieve it. And yeah, whether that is travel or research or exploring some other side hustle, or really just getting away from it all and taking a good vacation if they haven't had one. Whatever it is, you can do it in your year off, your locum year, because there are so many different ways to structure your year. You can work in the first half, you can work in the second half, you can study for a bit if you needed to do that, whatever. So you'll talk to 10 different people and you'll probably get 10 different answers into how they actually structure their year off. I think overall the feeling I get from most people is that you should actually try to do one of these years, and the main benefit is for you to actually just break it up a bit, not actually see medicine as a career at one particular health service in one particular postcode, but view your learning as sort of multifaceted, and you're able to go to different states, to different countries, you're able to go to different conferences, see different specialties, how they work, and I don't know, just build yourself up as a doctor overall rather than a doctor at a specific health service. That's the main thing to understand. So yeah, lots of different ways to be able to do it, but we'll check in a little bit later on and we can talk more about how everyone actually goes about their locum year and how I'm actually structuring it all. But in all honesty, it's going pretty well so far. I even started doing Pilates, believe it or not. So Pilates and yoga, something that I've been wanting to do for quite a while, but haven't had, well, I mean, I have had the time, I suppose, but I haven't actually put in the time to create the time. And yeah, you can be able to do that when you have freedom and actual space and not have to go to work and whatever. So yeah, anyways, we'll check in a bit later on. Well, I can't remember when we last actually started to make this video, but it's been a little bit. So we've now got changed and I think it's a couple days later on. So we're heading to our one of our private assisting lists that we've sort of started doing this year. And I guess that just falls into like the whole locuming thing, you know, like it's just an option that you can consider to have a little bit of extra cash. If you don't want to just do straight up shifts the whole time, you can get in touch with one of the surgeons who operate in the public, who operate in the private field, and see if they need any help holding cameras, doing a bit of stitching, yeah, just whatever, I guess. It's a really good way to keep up your operative skills and also, I don't know, just still keep in touch with the right people. Sometimes I think you can maybe get lost as a locum and not actually feel like we can't go down that street. What are we doing? That was almost chaotic. Can't go down that street either. This is good. Anyways, what I was trying to say is sometimes I think you can get lost as a locum and not actually know, you know, what to do, and you just become like a number in like the system, right? Can we go down this one? This is good. If that happens, I think that maybe you can just be solely looking at it for like a purely monetary point of view. Whereas I think the whole like locum, year off, time to do something different can be so much more than that. You know what I mean? So it can be a chance for you to focus on some stuff that you've been putting off for a while, or you just didn't really have time to do while you were working a public job. So yeah, private assisting is good, gets you in touch with the right people. It helps you keep up your skills, your suturing, your laparoscopic skills, that's primarily what people would need assisting for, right? In terms of like what you can get out for your private assisting, you could be with a surgeon who primarily does robotic stuff. You could do laparoscopic stuff, or open, or a mixture of everything. And I think, yeah, a mixture is probably the best way to do it. It just depends on the person who you're helping assist, to be honest. So either way, attaching yourself to someone can be good. You don't really have to do a lot of the pre-operative stuff that's already done for you. If you think about it in terms of what you do in public, you would need to prepare the list, you'd need to work the patient up, know their case inside and out, and make sure they're all right and ready to go for operation day. That's not really the case in private from an assistance point of view. From my brief experience in that area, you mainly have to, still of course introduce yourself to the patient, have a read of their stuff, have a idea of what the operation consists of, and go from there. But yeah, I guess when you it just by no means is it the same amount of work as the responsibility of being a registrar in the public health system. So yeah, anyways, there's lots of different opportunities out there. If you don't know anyone in particular, there's always companies or forums where you can actually present yourself to people who might know other people who are in the surgical sphere, or if you know of someone who's doing assisting, that you can actually see if that other person who they're assisting, the surgeon, maybe needs someone on a different day, or if they know people who need assisting. Sometimes one of the best ways to do it is just to rock up and do what's called second assist, and that's essentially like assistant on work experience, and you can not really get paid, but you just come along, assist, make sure you know what you're doing, how everything goes, and that's the way it works. Apart from all that stuff, I think the start of the year's been pretty good. It's certainly something a bit different, and I sort of compare it to what everyone else is going through at the moment. People who are just starting out work as an intern, lot of work and interpretation and just getting used to the whole system. It can be quite a big adjustment. So everyone's probably finding their strides in the first few weeks of the year. Obviously everyone really starts in Feb, interns a little bit earlier than that, but can be quite onerous for everyone stepping into a new role for the first time. So I think now for the next few weeks, it's really about just getting into the swing of things and finding your feet, and then you can start to level up, which is a really cool thing to experience. So yeah, I mean, happens every year. Chaos, then you settle down, and then you can start to level up and really dig deep into everything. So yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time, to be honest. Well, just finished the operating list. We had 2 cases this afternoon. It's always like interesting, doing a lot more assisting, a lot of different cases, especially like different operations. Like you don't think about it much, but like, I don't know, I've done like this operation a couple times now, maybe like 5 to 6 times, and I'm just still trying to work out like the best position for me, predicting what the next step of the operation is, so my body can get in like the right position. It's a bit interesting, but you don't really think about like ergonomics of the operating theatre until you're in there in like a 2.5-3 hour case, and your arms feeling like it's going to fall off, and you haven't done any exercise like it ever before. It's pretty tricky to actually sort of get your head around. But I don't know, like my arm was dying in this case, and it took you know, all my effort, all my strength to just sort of push through. It's really frustrating. But then you do the next case and you're like, oh, it's so much easier because you decided to go into this position rather than that other one that you're in. So, and you need to figure it out, because the incentive is it's going to cause you less pain, less injury, and just be a more enjoyable experience in the future. So it's it's not something you really think about. You just you go in, do the operation, you learn the steps of the operation, you say hi to your patient, but then you're like, well, what if I get tired? What if I get sore? What if I am feeling those things like fatigue and pain, that I lose track and focus of what step I'm meant to do? So when push comes to shove, you need to make sure you're in the most comfortable, practical position, so that you can get yourself into the right, movements to effectively perform the procedure. So anyways, something that's food for thought for operations going ahead, but just not something you really sort of pay much attention to as a medical student, or even as a junior doctor who's on the wards and not really spending a lot of time in theatre. But whatever it is, you do a lot, and then you get better at it over time, and it's just reps, and then that begets quality. When you sort of put in the reps, you have incentive to learn and get better. You will develop a better strategy, because that's the path of least resistance. And it's a complete different field as well, like the private sector compared to public. We've had a few lists now that I've assisted at the start of this year, and yeah, it's good. It breaks up my time. I'm not just focusing on research or study. I'm doing actual hands-on clinical work, and I think it's honestly the stuff that I want to be doing. I would rather be doing this than staying on the wards, doing ward rounds, attending clinical reviews, holding a pager, holding the phone. That's very busy, taxing work, and this is good, but it's all in a very controlled environment. You don't have a lot of junior doctors in the private hospitals. There might be a resident there looking after the ward, making sure the patients are okay, but it's largely a consultant-driven environment, which is just not what you're probably used to as a junior doctor. You are surrounded by graduate nursing staff, you're surrounded by interns, medical students, junior doctors, residents, registrars. There's a mixture of people all around. It's a very busy place, lots of people trying to learn. They're teaching hospitals, and so they should be, because you need to actually learn and develop your skills, and you need to be surrounded by other people who are in the same environment, and consultants and people who are willing to teach you. So teaching hospitals are an amazing place, but it's completely different to the private hospital. Whereas in the list, I was the only junior person there. There's a consultant anaesthetist. There's no, registrar anaesthetist. There's no critical care HMO or a medical student. For the surgical side, it's just the consultant, and then there's me. So, and of course all the other stuff in the theatre as well. But I don't know. They don't really have people who are training there, because I don't know. I know that there are people in who are training in private, but from a doctor side of things, you don't really see it. It's all they're all in the public hospital, I'm trying to think. Not too many people would get that much private exposure unless you are in the surgical environment. From a physician side of thing, I don't really think you would. I'm just reflecting on, interactions my friends have had or other colleagues where you go into private? Not really. Most of the physicians do their work in the hospitals, and then once they're fully set up and everything, unless they have some procedural element like a gastroscopy or bronchoscopy list, which is part of certain certain medical specialties, you probably just stay in the public hospital until you finish your training and everything and go into private practice to see people. So yeah, I think the first exposure that we get would be as surgical residents, registrars, trying to assist or help out with. I tried to suppress that yawn, but I just couldn't. It's coffee time. Coffee time indeed. Yeah, you're just surrounded by all these other people, and lots of teaching and learning gets involved. So also think it's very poorly understood part of the healthcare system. I'm certainly trying to get my head around all like the private healthcare industries and funds and how it works, and gap fees and no gap fees, and bulk billed and not, and I don't know, it's like there's a lot of complicated terms that may just you pick up in everyday life, but in terms of understanding it from a healthcare provider point of view, it's a different story. So in order for someone to work at a private hospital, you definitely need to have a provider number for that place. And often what you need to do is, because you're not getting accredited, you're not having like a formal offer of employment at the hospital. You get accreditation, and then that accreditation allows you to practice at that place, and you need to get your referees or references to sign off on you, and they have to be consultants, and you need to fill out all this onboarding paperwork. It's quite an onerous task and quite frustrating when you have to do it for a different organisation. So having somewhere where you've already done all that, it's very helpful, because it's like applying for a new job, just without like the actual formal contract of it. You have to do all the ID, things. You have to do a police check, working with children's check, make sure all those things are updated. You need to, as I said, have referees, then tick all the things, all the boxes. It's a lot of work. And often it's just like brought on, in my experience, it's been like, oh, hey, can you help out with this list this week or that week? And then you say, yeah, sure, I can do it, I'm free that day, but not realize that you have to go through this whole process to get accredited and everything. Then you have to get acquainted to the new hospital, find your car park. I mean, just today it's the second time I've been there, but for some reason I think my accreditation lapsed or whatnot, and I had to get a swipe card and fill in all these security forms, and just things you don't think about. And the main reason you're there is to try help out with the operation, but a lot of logistics around it all. But it's good fun. I'd strongly recommend to someone who's thinking about doing that, getting into surgery, to go assist if you have surgical consultants who you can help out with. It's a great way to learn and get hands-on one-on-one experience with them. They're often very encouraging and helpful and willing to teach, and in private they take charge of the operation, and really it's not really meant for a teaching sort of thing. People get their operation done, and it's done by the consultant, and it's just a really good thing to do. So definitely, if you're thinking about it, if you're thinking about doing some, it's hard to do, I guess, when you are in a training position, because you are obliged to be at that public you're obliged to be at that public hospital appointment when you're rostered there. If you're not rostered, I guess it's up to you what you do in your own time, but you may actually want to get away from work, because obviously the work in the public sector can be quite demanding, quite onerous, and yeah, it can actually just take a lot out of you. So your breaks are meant to be breaks, and you should do other stuff outside medicine with them. But if you want it, you can fit it in during your normal appointments there. Otherwise, when you take a year off, may as well hit up some private surgeons, see if they, you see if they need an assistant, and preferably people want someone who can help out like a regular list, because they're constantly seeing patients, they're constantly booking them for operations. Often people have consulting days, and then after those consulting days they might have operating days. And I was just talking to this other surgeon, and it's like one day is just all scopes, so gastroscopies, colonoscopies. One day is just, one morning is just consulting. Then you might do a full day list on another day. So lots of things happening, and everyone has their own schedules, and some people operate every day. You can literally do as much or as little work as you want, I guess, in private, apart from your public appointments. So it's a really interesting side of things. Some people, once they get fully qualified, get their letters, they've passed all their exams and everything, they might spend a few years in the public system, and then once they're confident enough or whatever, decide what they want to do, and then may actually go, fully into private. And some people never go private and just stay public. Very rare, I think, in the surgical field, but I know a couple of people who just stay public, and that's what they do. It's what they don't have any private appointments. So whatever time they're not doing in public system, they are, doing other stuff, non-medical stuff, research, whatever. So just one thing to think about in terms of like the big picture, the longer term plan. What sort of like lifestyle would you like? Do you look at a public hospital and think, oh, I'm glad I'm here at the moment, there's lots of people, there's lots of support, but I think ideally I would like to set up my own private practice and do that stuff? Pros and cons to both. I guess private hospitals, you're always on call for your private patients. Public hospitals, if you're not on call, there's someone else on call and you're not rostered, you're literally free, right? But if you go away as a private surgeon, someone may need to cover you, and you may actually need to go and do a lot of the stuff that maybe you would otherwise get your junior doctors to do. So there's bits and pieces that you still have to do. You're not like completely like, cut out from it as a private surgeon consultant, or just a private consultant in general. You still hear and you talk to the consultants, and they say, oh, I had a list in private on Monday or Tuesday, and I'll say like, oh, what are you up to the next day? And they'll be like, oh, well, I'll come in 6:30, do a ward round on my patients. So like, I don't know, when I first heard that, for the first time, I was like, wow, like consultants ward round? Like they actually get up early, go to a ward round? Like, yeah, like they'll do that. They need to see their private patients, and then, they'll go off to whatever else they've got going on, whether it's in public or they've got some consulting or whatnot. So they are very much on call. You don't really think about it like that. You think they might just be doing other stuff, and then you bother them with questions or whatever if you need, they've got patients. That's what they're there for. So they might be halfway through a clinic list that they have, they're consulting. They go to their rooms, they do the consulting there. they might get a call and say, oh, one of the patients that you have in private, day 2 post-op, they've got a bit of bleeding. I think you should come and see them, or I'm a bit worried about them. And then you have to be like, well, yeah, I'm consulting here. I need to go to this hospital, sort out my patient, because who else is going to do it? You don't have a resident really, or a registrar to go and sort out problems for you. There usually is like a private hospital resident to look after the patients and cover for bits and pieces, but chances are they're not going to be experts in whatever field that you are in, and you may be able to get them to help, but you probably have to go in and sort a lot of this stuff out yourself. So it's kind of interesting perspective. You just pick up these things by chatting to people about what they do in their day-to-day life, especially in other places when they're not at the hospital. So they don't just, if it's a private surgeon, they don't just come to the clinic, do the clinic, then go home, and that's it. They have other appointments at other hospitals. You know, you look at like the consultant jobs that get advertised. Some of them are not 1.0 full-time work. They're not at the hospital every day. There might be 0.2, 0.3. You know what I mean? And if you think about it, if you're full-time, you're there on a full-time wage, full-time salary, full-time hours, and 0.2, that's like 1 day a week, 1.5 days a week, you know? So you don't really think too much about that. But balancing the on-call commitments, the clinic, the theatre lists, you know, different ways you can spread across your time, but yeah, that's how it works. So if you don't have other stuff going on, that's not really a lot of work. And sure, you get paid more, given that you're a more qualified doctor and you have more years of training under your belt, etc. But it's still only 0.2. And you actually need to have a few different public hospital appointments, or you need to have private appointments. Yeah, a lot of thinking to go into everything. So yeah, it's a good insight into actually how the public and private sectors actually overlap or are very different from each other, and just having exposure to bits and pieces of both is super important, so you can get your head around it and actually just understand what happens and how it all works. I think that's half the battle. Is if you don't know, then you can't really advise people on what to do and how it sort of, you know, all fits together. So yeah. Anyways, I'm about to fall asleep. I've been up since, it's 6 o'clock now. I've been up since 6 a.m. Early start. So I'm going to get home, get a coffee and reset so I can switch off and enjoy the rest of the night. But we'll leave it there. Anyways, let me know if you have any questions about anything to do with that private assisting, research, locum stuff. I think it's a very interesting thing to think about as a junior doctor, even as a resident or as an intern. I didn't really think that I wanted to do a year like this until very recently, and even at the start of last year, I was thinking, if I got like another one of these years, it'd be fine. But after finishing off my third year as a junior doctor, I thought, oh no, this is much needed. I'm very glad that I went down this path and decided to make a bit of a break of things and interrupt how I wanted to do my day-to-day stuff, and it gives you time to do a whole bunch of other things. So strongly consider it. I think 3 years into working as a junior doctor, albeit I did have 7 years in total of study before that, 3 years undergrad, 4 years postgrad, straight from school, didn't have a gap year. Potentially it's all like 10 years build up and I need a break, and not even a break, like I get bored very easily, so I just need a slight change of pace, a slight variation in my schedule to keep me motivated, to keep me interested, keep going. But you may actually find you need this after 1 year, 2 years working as a doctor. Just think about it. I think as long as you structure the year so you can progress and learn from it and develop, you can't go wrong with it. And that may actually be stepping away from medicine for a year and traveling for 6 months and doing all that stuff, if that's been gnawing at you to go and do that. So make the time, consider it, and then go from there. All right, leave you to it. We'll see you next time. Bye.